Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. We are smack dab in the middle of championship season, joined by my good friends Mark Ostrander Grant Turner. A lot of state tournaments are happening this weekend. Several happened last weekend. Very special time of the year. GT, we recorded a day early last week because you went to the Iowa State tournament. To me, sort of the headliners were the upsets. There was two four-timers that didn't, or three-timers, excuse me, that didn't win their fourth. And I have, at least Max Magana had been in Border Brawl and Fort Dodge, Iowa. I think we all have a good relationship with Bobby T and those guys. What were your thoughts on the Iowa State tournament in general as somebody who's recruiting?
Well, I think, when it comes to the state tournaments, Iowa has a very rich history of having, finals be finals and the state tournament being great. This year was the first, I think it was the first time ever it had gone to a 4-day format, which is interesting. But yeah, I think there's some crazy upsets. There were some brand new kids that had moved in from out of state that looked very, very, very talented. It's really cool to see the ebb and flows of communities of Iowa that come to Des Moines for the state tournament. The 1A, the 2A, the 3A schools that basically just make that migration every February, and it's fun to get the wrestling community all back together. So it was a great time.
So, Mark, I know your time at Iowa Central, you had to recruit that tournament because your team was always heavy Iowa kids, even though you did a great job of recruiting across the country. Your core is going to be those in-state kids. I'm sure you were following it online. I talked to Bobby and Tanner at midnight on Saturday night, and, they had 3 state champs and, congratulated them. So thoughts from you?
Yeah, I thought, Fort Dodge wrestled really well. Southeast Polk is really good. I mean, just up and down the lineup, they were phenomenal. So I think they came real close to breaking the record, didn't they, Grant? I mean, within 2 points or something like that. So
super close.
Yeah. So kudos to them. They were, probably, 15 minutes from where Grant and I are. So, they're a suburb of the Des Moines area. So, congrats to them. Bettendorf, they've come a long ways. I don't ever really remember, except for the last few years, talking a lot about Bettendorf wrestling. So Dan Knight's done a great job over there. Ex-Iowa State wrestler. He's done a phenomenal job with that program. His son wrestled. His son was a 2-time state champ. He's a junior this year and got beat by the kid from Southeast Polk in the finals. Won in a really good match. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
He beat Ayala in the semis and lost in the finals, and he and Ayala seem to wrestle at every big tournament. Yep. Yeah, Dan Knight's, was a legend coming out of high school, undefeated 4-timer. He was actually on the team at Iowa State when I was there, was one of the nicest guys on the team to me. And his speech that he gave after one session of a tournament where they didn't wrestle particularly well went viral for all the right reasons. Hey, accountability, go, be positive, move forward from it. So a bunch of things like that. So
I do have one question for Grant. Grant, and I just saw a little tidbit of this on, listening to stuff. Did Dan Gable's grandson wrestle in the state tournament? And did he win it?
I don't know. I remember talking to Dan about him having to go to districts, but I didn't follow his grandson, or I don't know his name.
Okay.
But I do know that he was in high school wrestling and, basically had tried to go towards state, but I didn't follow it afterwards.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to jump around here. The next thing are the Pan Am Continentals. GT did a great job of explaining last week that there's a difference between the Continental tournament and the Olympic qualifier tournament. But the Continentals, I just got off the phone with Gary Abbott so I could sound as intelligent as possible. And GT, you can validate this. There's 2 main purposes of this Continental tournament. One is for seeding points, UWW, which you brought up to me. I can't remember on or off the air, but you were on that. You were all over that. But the second thing is this is another way to qualify for the Olympic trials. So we're not going to go through all those because we're like a day and a fourth into it. And rather than do a half conversation, another half conversation, we'll sum up all the results next week. But just so people understand, and they're both in Acapulco, I think, GT. So some athletes will actually just stay down there the full week. Then we have some athletes who are wrestling in both, some who are only wrestling the first one or the second one. So we're obviously a USA Wrestling podcast, and we just want to make sure people didn't think we fell asleep at the wheel and forgot about that tournament, because we did not. We just want to make sure people understand that. So shout out to the boys over at Flow Wrestling. They, FRL, crossed over to 1,000 episodes. It's a big deal. I think we've done like 350 of these, and I've been blessed to be a part of every single one of them. And we only go once a week, where those guys go 2 or 3 times a week. But however you add it up, 1,000 is a significant number, and they've changed the landscape of wrestling. And I think there's a lot of things I like about theirs. You know, some things we try to do differently, but as somebody who runs events and tries to do unique things, going first is hard. And so shout out to those guys. I know other people had podcasts first, but the longevity of 1,000 episodes is significant. So congrats to, and it was actually Willie was on that show. I talked to Willie the same day, but Willie, CP, and that whole crew, all those guys over there, congratulations. So we can talk, I guess let's talk Adam Hall, Utah Valley. So Greg Williams is retiring at the end of the year. Adam Hall is the assistant coach at North Carolina State, but he comes from Boise State, correct? So he's familiar with that Utah, Idaho area, geography, recruiting, young guy, 36 years old. Pat Pop speaks highly of him. Pat Pop has built a great program at North Carolina State. I personally think it's going to be hard to win at Utah Valley. I just think it doesn't have great in-state wrestling and stuff like that, but it's a Division I job in a major conference, albeit as an affiliate, which could change. But Mark, thoughts on Adam Hall?
Yeah, I mean, geez, he represented the United States. He was right up there on the ladder for the Olympic team year in and year out. So, yeah, I don't see why he would not build that program into something, hopefully be competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be a hustle though, right? I mean, like I was talking to somebody about this off the air. There's certain programs that want to be good at certain sports. And maybe Grant's got a different perspective on this, because Grandview, you guys started that program and now it's a blockbuster, dynasty, whatever the right term. But if Nick Mitchell and Paul, by the way, shout out to Paul Reedy, right? Assistant coach of the year. Is that correct?
Yep, for the conference.
Yeah. So shout out to him. But let's say you guys all just split a lottery ticket and hit it, and you guys walked off into the sunset. It feels like Grandview's a type of school that's going to want to stay good at wrestling, like Alabama wants to stay good at football. And when you're at programs, I would say Iowa Central wants to be good at wrestling. So I think the Utah Valley jobs, it's great. And, you know, it's probably a stepping stone for him, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't see those guys becoming like a top 15 team, and it's no slight to him. I think it's in-state money, NIL money, all the other stuff that makes this a business, and it has nothing to do with how good of a coach or a recruiter you are. But, you know, obviously we wish him all the best, and the John Smith adjacent coaching tree continues to grow. So, all right. Go ahead.
I think for Utah Valley, like you got a lot of ground, you got a lot of exclusivity out there. Like you could do some really, really big things there, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of real estate, right? So listen, like if somebody's tired of doing it and somebody's got fresh legs, that's a big thing in itself, right? So, all right. So there are several big duels for us to talk about. Let's try to tackle them, in chronological order. NC State, Virginia Tech tonight at NC State for the ACC title. That's a big deal. So I will share screen here. As always, You can find what we're talking about at fantasygrade.com. Those guys are also running a couple tournaments at the NCAA tournament that you should strongly consider participating in. And I think this duel is part of their in-season duel schedule. So some interesting developments here on the NC State side. I think Camacho came back, and he's now the 25-pounder. Fishback wrestled really well against Foca last week. NC State overall wrestled really well against Cornell. Virginia Tech, I don't think Bryce Andonian will be in the lineup when I talked to Roby a couple weeks ago, but other than that, this looks like their lineup. So, Mark, do you want to go through and make picks, or do you want me to just name off the picks and tell me if you guys disagree? You want to do it that way?
Sure.
Okay. Cooper Flynn over Camacho. Anybody got Camacho?
I'll take Camacho.
Okay. I'm pretty much just going to say the favorite over the dog based on rankings, so nobody thinks I'm like homering. Arini over Latona. Any dissenters?
Latona.
So you got it back to even on team score. Okay. Brian Jack over Tom Crook. Caleb Henson over Jackson Arrington in the highest ranked match of the night, number 2 against number 3.
That's going to be awesome.
Yes, that is going to be awesome. That's a great point.
Grant, what would you put the point spread on this?
I'd take Caleb Henson by decision.
Is it like a 2-point match, 3-point match, one take? What do you think?
Decisions are so wild now. Like, I think it's like it's with the whatever the 3-point takedown, 4-point near fall, like it could go from crazy to extra crazy real quick. But who knows, man? Those guys, they want to come and scrap. So it could be like 13-10.
The over-under number, I think, is super interesting to me in that match. Like GT is saying, like you could hit high double digits fairly quickly. So Ed Scott against TBD, I'm assuming I would make Ed Scott the favorite since it's not Andonian.
Yeah.
Fields over Brady. Okay. Mackay over Faison. Fishback over, it looks like it's going to be TJ Stewart.
Yeah.
Hidley over Andy Smith. And then Tree Fan over Katka. So
I'll take Katka.
Okay. All right. So let's go to the chalk. If the chalk holds, then Virginia Tech wins 25. We'll just count Virginia Tech and work backwards. They win 49. They win 74. Wow. They only win 3 matches on paper. You go the other way. Arini wins. Jack wins. Ed Scott wins. Fields wins. Fishback wins. Hidley wins. Tree Fan wins. So, I mean, the path to victory for NC State or for Virginia Tech is Cooper Flynn wins, Latona wins, Crook can beat Ryan Jack. He's capable. They've wrestled a bunch. Caleb Henson wins, Mackay wins, and they steal heavyweight. That's their path to six victories if people are out there looking at it. Mark, you had it. You flip-flopped 25 and 33, so you still had it 7-3. I didn't pick. I was just laying it out at 7-3, and GT has it 6-4 with the Katka win over Tree Fan. So I think the duel I find it hard to believe the duel is going to be 7-3. This duel is just always super close. I guess the financial advisor had in me says past performance does not guarantee future results, but I find it hard to believe that this duel will be like, out of reach of 184 or something like that. But I think this will be on ESPN Plus or something like that, maybe even ESPN2. So I assume the normal guys will have the call on that. And it's a super exciting duel, and there's been some big moments. And then this duel is super significant for seeding in the ACC. And we've mentioned this over the years, but the ACC is a low-key, really good conference. Not as much depth as Big 10 and Big 12 for sheer number of teams, but the top-end talent is really good. So Mark, 7-3, GT 6-4. Am I misquoting you guys, or do I have it close?
That sounds about right.
Okay. All right. GT, I'm assuming – I'm not even going to joke about that. Never mind. Okay. Iowa State, Missouri. before we get into this duel, so Mark, GT and I have to give you credit, Obi-Wan. You said last year that whoever won the first match between Carr and O'Toole would not win the last match, and that each guy would obviously, as a part of that, at least win one. And you were dead on the nuts, accurate. I went Carr, O'Toole in terms of dual Big 12s, NCAAs. Okay.
Okay.
And even though the Big 12 was a pin, I would argue the duel, it went from most extreme to least extreme because it was an overtime pin, where Carr beat him pretty handily in the duel. Now, the duel this year is in Iowa State. So let's do this. GT, who do you think wins this match?
Team versus team?
No, 165.
I think Keegan gets him.
Okay. We'll talk about why in a minute. Mark?
Wow. I think at home, I think David Carr finds a way to win.
I'm going to take Carr because of the home and because of the fact that it's the hunter and the hunted. And I think he's probably making more adjustments as the guy that lost the last time than Keegan. So I think there's something to that. GT, walk me through how does the match need to go? And I don't mean this sarcastically, like Keegan needs to score more points, but like some specificity, either, certain positions, tie-ups, that if you're Brian Smith and, Kendrick Maple and company, that you want to see, how do you want to see the match go for Keegan?
Well, I think based off of kind of like some of the matches that they've already basically had in general, I think it all basically starts and ends with whoever gets the first takedown. So, I think that sets kind of the tone for if Carr wins and gets the first one, kind of he's in the driver's seat and Keegan needs to come after him. Or if Carr's having trouble finishing against O'Toole, then he gets gun shy, maybe doesn't take as many shots as much. Or, basically I would be extremely happy with whoever gets the first takedown wins the match. Now, once again, I'm not big on analytics and all that other manure when it comes to whoever gets the first takedown, wins the match 90% of the time type stuff. I think with the way that the points are, it does not matter. Like you can score, you can win all sorts of different ways. But I just think in a match that this is this close with a 3-point takedown, with how good O'Toole is on top, how good Carr is on his feet, with the ability of like one cradle or one position that could go and give you 3-4 points, it just lends itself to, that first 3-point gap.
Yeah.
Really kind of gives you a little bit more advantage to take the match in different avenues, right? Maybe I don't go down. Maybe I stay at the feet.
Yeah.
All of those different things that you can go into like match analytics and match strategies and all these other things. But I think in tight matches like that, you definitely want to like set the tone a little bit and maybe get the first one, but it's not the end all be all with these two guys. I just think that if you can change the dynamic of the match pretty easily.
For sure. Mark.
Yeah, I like David Carr. I think at home he wrestles really, really well. I think he's, he didn't wrestle any freestyle this summer. I think he was strictly doing things to beat Keegan O'Toole. That's what his focus has been on. I know he's been up in the room every single day preparing for this, what's going to happen. But this isn't the end all of what's going to happen, because they're going to meet 2 more times. They're going to meet in the Big 12s, and they're going to meet probably in the finals of the NCAAs. There's a good chance of that happening, or in the semis, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
With the seed. So, I like David when there's no pressure on him to win this duel. There's a difference. There's pressure when you're in the finals of the NCAA tournament. And Keegan's been there before and he's won it. David's been there before and he's won it. So I for this type of situation, I like David. I think he's a little bit better on his feet than O'Toole. David has to stay off the mat with him, though. I mean, you don't want to be there. He just shuts down the matches.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because like the first match, David Carr rode the tar out of Keegan O'Toole, right? Like he did a great job of riding him, which was shocking. O'Toole kept making adjustments every match. And I think it's hard if two guys are really good. I think it's hard for the guy that's, a hair better. If GT's a smidge better than me, to find a way to make the smidge bigger. It's a lot easier for me to close that gap. Because when I'm watching the film, I'm seeing there's more mistakes I can fix. If he won, by definition, he made less mistakes. So I think it's interesting. These guys are both obviously super high level, both awesome human beings. Flo did a really cool 5 or 6 minute video preview of it. So Mark, same prediction that no one sweeps this series this year?
Yeah, I think they'll split.
So here's the interesting thing, guys, and we'll get into this more, but if David Carr wins this match or the Big 12s, it opens it up for Mitchell Messenbrink theoretically to get the number 1 seed at the NCAAs.
Correct.
Because he would be undefeated, assuming he runs that gauntlet. I don't know if he'll be the 1 seed or the 2 seed. They'll vote on that between him and Hamidi because they haven't wrestled. But if he were to beat Hamidi in the finals and go undefeated, this is a unique weight class in that more of the good guys are in the Big 12 this year.
Yep.
There's Keegan, Carr, Olenek, Peyton Hall is really good, and then you have Ramirez. Like the highest ranked guy right now is Messenbrink and Hamidi, and most people have him ranked 5 or 6.
Yep.
So I don't know that he can jump all the way to 1, but the number 1 way to jump to 1 is for everybody else to have a loss.
Correct.
So I'm just pointing that out for people. Okay, the duel here. Here's the other interesting thing. I wonder if they'll start this duel at 74 and make that match the last match, because this is David Carr's last home meet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, he may have another year with COVID. I really
I don't think he does, but let's just say he doesn't for the sake of this conversation. All right, we'll start at 25. Certain favored over Terrakina. Any arguments?
Nope.
33, Frost will be favored big time because Cade Moore is not healthy. 41, Echemendia over Josh Edmond. 49, Swiderski will be favored. They'll probably wrestle Joel Milan, not Logan Joffrey. So right now it's 3-1 Iowa State. 57, boys, number 12 against number 13, Mahler and Chittum. Both guys, super high expectations at the beginning of the year. Both have been inconsistent. Both have super high ceilings. Mark, who you got? I know who you're picking. You're picking your son, right?
I'm going to go with Brock Marlett, or I'm going to take Mahler just because he's a little bit more experienced right now.
Okay, I'm definitely GT. We would have guessed that wrong, right?
I'm shocked myself, but
I thought for sure you would take Chittum. All right, GT.
I'll take Mahler in that match too. I just think. I don't know if even Cody Chittum will wrestle. I think it's probably a good match for them to wrestle, but I'm not sure of his health, so I'm going to take Mahler instead.
If Chittum was 100% healthy, do you stick with Mahler?
No.
Okay. All right. We've already made our positions on Carr and O'Toole. Peyton Mako over MJ Gaitan.
I'll take Gaitan.
Okay. Will Feldkamp over Clayton Whiting.
Wait a minute. Can I take Gaitan too? I think this could be one of the best matches of the night. These two are going to be going back and forth. If they're not both on their back at least twice, I'm going to be amazed. Because these guys are both huge junkers, and it's going to be really entertaining to watch. This is a match you're going to want to watch.
GT, Mark asking me if he can do something. Mark runs this podcast. Asking pretending like he's asking for permission on it. All right. So we got Feldkamp over Whiting, we said.
I'm going to take Whiting.
Okay.
I think he's just better on his feet. And Feldkamp has not impressed me this year. He's a good mat wrestler, don't get me wrong, but if he can't take you down, he's got to choose top. And these guys are seasoned, really good athletes. Most of them aren't going to get turned. You may get riding time, but that's not going to make a difference if you can't take somebody down. So I'm going to give Whiting the edge here.
Okay. Rocky Elam over, I'm assuming, Broderson.
Yes.
And then younger Bastida over Zach Elam, which is 2 undefeated guys. Okay, so let's go through the matches we agree on. 25 is Mizzou. 33 is Iowa State. 41 is Iowa State. 49 is Iowa State. 97 is Missouri. Heavyweight is Iowa State. So it's 4-2 Iowa State, and there's 4 toss-ups. And I mean, and a couple of these are toss-ups, like number 1 against 2, number 13 against 12. I mean, 10 and 18, but again, I would pick, just so you guys know, I'm taking Carr this time. I'm taking Mako, and I'm taking Whiting. And so that, then the fourth, what's the other, there's a fourth match. Oh, I guess I'll take Mahler, so that makes it 5-5.
Yeah.
GT, you're picking the clones, right?
All day, baby.
All day, twice on Sunday. Let's go, right?
I mean, I've given a lot of nods to Mizzou. I mean, Mahler, O'Toole, Certain, I think they're going to do very well. I mean, once again, we all believe that, David Carr and Keegan O'Toole are 2, if not top 5 pound for pound athletes that we have in the United States.
Yeah.
I think where the duel could get crazy is, I think, and if I could pick out matches that are going to be wild, will be 74-41. I think 97 could get crazy from the standpoint of like, what Rocky Elam do we see and how many points does he score?
Yeah. So Rocky I guess for people, we'll get to the ranking side of this because we haven't even touched on it, but Rocky had the first takedown and then got stuck by Tanner Sloan. So that's definitely something that can go in a different direction.
What about David? What about heavyweight? Do you see that being a really close match, or do you see possibly Bastida opening up and maybe getting a major? Just so good on his feet.
I think you kind of talk about path to victory, right? And I think Bastida's path to victory is kind of what he's done all year, right? Just be better on his feet, be explosive, But Zach Elam's a lot bigger dude than like Lucas Davison. Like, I don't think he's going to pick. I shouldn't say this because it'd be fascinating to watch this, but like, I don't think he's just going to pick Zach Elam up over his head. And Elam's really good at that back ankle hook ride and slowing the match down. Like, if the match is 0-0, it favors Elam, right? If there's 2 takedowns in the first period, it probably, without knowing, it probably favors Bastida. So, I mean, I think Bastida. Here's the thing, though, about Bastida. Like, if he just takes a sloppy shot, Zach Elam will get heavy on him and go behind him. And then, if you do that at the end of a period and you don't get your escape, because Bastida will not ride Elam. Like, he won't even try.
Yeah.
I mean, he might try to ride him for 15 seconds at the end of the period or something, but, I mean, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, there's not going to be, let's say it was tied somehow going in the third period, and if Zach Elam rides him out, then he wins. I could see him at least attempting that. I'm not sure he can do it, but I could see him attempting it. So this duel can go. Mark, you have Missouri?
I have Iowa State winning.
Okay.
I took David Carr. I took Gatan. I took Swiderski, Echemendia, Frost, and I take Bastida. So I got it 6. I think I have it 6-4.
6-4. Yeah. I would have Frost, Echemendia, Swiderski. That's 3. Carr 4. Rocky 5. Or no, sorry, Carr 4. Younger 5. So I have it 5-5. So I'll go to the 9th criteria in total points. So, all right, we're going to close with Iowa, Oklahoma State. And Mark, you don't know this, but I'm very upset. Justin McClintock told me yesterday he was going to come on the air and do his Tom Brands, Mark Ostrander impression. we were going to get a Tom Brams news conference, and he has not come on the air. So I'm highly, highly disappointed. But
did you invite him through
yeah.
the? All right.
I invited him, and he said he was coming on. So he's a highly entertaining human being, right, GT?
Oh yeah, I love me some McClintock.
All right, we'll go through the rankings here real quick, and then get to that last duel. So Caleb Smith moves up. He won convincingly over Penn State, over Braden Davis. Patrick McKee doing Patrick McKee things, coming big up at the late in the year. Spratley takes a little bit of a fall from 8 to 11. So, by the way, Oklahoma State won Bedlam convincingly and fell in the rankings because the 3 matches they lost, they were ranked higher. And it really hurt them in heavyweight because a couple people had Doucette ranked 8. So in the ranking points, it made a bigger difference. Okay, 33. No significant changes in the top 15, 16. Are you guys hearing that it's going to be Teskey at the end of the year or Schriever? Or are you hearing anything?
I haven't heard a word. I don't know why Tom doesn't call me and tell me these things, but he just hasn't yet. I'm still waiting.
Well, I thought you might talk to Beatty.
Yeah, Beatty's has nothing to do with the college team.
Doesn't mean he doesn't hear things.
I don't know.
Okay. Mark's dark horse at 157 is shooting up the charts, Brayton Lee. There wasn't a lot of changes at 33, 41, 49. 65, again, so Mitchell Messenbrink, it's very interesting. He's ranked 6'6", 6th, 3rd. So, which gets him averaged out to 5th, which he's not ranked 5th by anyone. But that's just how the math works. So,
I just don't think Messenbrink gets the number 1 NCAA tournament seed. I just don't.
Okay, and it's a fair point, right? Let's say he goes undefeated.
Yeah.
And let's say Keegan wins the duel, and then David Carr wins the Big 12s. Then who's the number 1 seed?
I think whoever wins the Big 12s is the number 1 seed at the national tournament.
Carr will be in that scenario, even though he lost to Julian Ramirez during the year.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay. It'll probably come down to coach's vote.
Yeah, I think splitting. Yeah, I just think whoever wins the Big 12 tournament with Olynyk, O'Toole, and Hall all in that bracket, I think whoever, you just can't, if they split again or if O'Toole or Carr wins that thing, I still only one loss to who is guaranteed, basically just a monster at that weight.
Yeah, the argument against Mitchell Messenbrink is he hasn't really wrestled anybody super good yet. The other thing that you have to keep in mind, which is not supposed to count but will count, is the fact that Izzy Olynyk beat Hamidi at the All-Star meet. And it doesn't count on record. It doesn't count on RPI. It doesn't count on any of those things, but it's going to count on coach's vote. It's going to count. So
we've all watched the NCAA do seedings at the national tournament. And if you're telling me you've never been surprised by one of their decisions, you guys are nuts because
hey. Don't saying we're nuts.
They do some stuff, and it would not shock me to see Messenbrink number 1 if he's undefeated. It would not shock me.
This feels like the year. You guys remember the year where Tommy Gant was undefeated, and then Isaiah Martinez and Nolf were on the same side, and they ended up making Gant the 2. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, because he beat Cody Pack that year, 2nd round.
Okay. I'm just saying you remember the overall scenario.
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like I think that's where Mark's or GT's going with it. It's that hey, he might sneak up to number 2, but it's going to be hard to sneak up to number 1. And it's a very similar analogy because Nolf and Martinez were both former NCAA champs, and the same thing with Carr and O'Toole. And GT, I don't want to say your argument for you if it's not correct, but I think your argument is, hey, some guy that's never wrestled in the national tournament just because he went undefeated shouldn't get seeded number one over two guys that lost to each other that are both, NCAA champs, and all three of them are world team champs or medalists, which I think they're all world champion, age group world champions, right? Carr, Keegan, and Messenbrink have all won U17 or U20 gold medals.
Believe so.
Just so we understand, I agree with everything Grant said, that the winner of the Big 12 should be the number one seed at the national tournament. What I'm trying to get at is that the NCAA, when they do their seeds, they've surprised a lot of people in the past, so it wouldn't shock me to see Messenbrink number one. That's what I was trying to say. Not that he should be, but it wouldn't shock me if he was.
Totally agree, Mark. I think for just the sake of our discussion, we had talked about it a couple of times on air where Messenbrink could potentially be the number one seed. And I'm to the fact of like how we talked at the very beginning of the year where all the freshmen make their way up through the rankings. Mm-hmm. Like, I just don't think that Messenbrink has had an opportunity to displace the people that were already above him based off of like where Penn State wrestles, or once again, if it was 1, 2, and 3 in the inverse, like, and there was somebody from the Big Ten that was 1, 2, and 3, whoever wins the Big Ten is probably going to be the number one seed.
Yep.
So I just think if I hold true to like my guns on, if I were to like switch it up and say, Caliendo, Hamidi, Messenbrink were 1, 2, and 3 in the nation, and a freshman David Carr was 6th, I still think that whoever wins the Big Ten should be the number one seed of the national tournament.
I think we all agree. And GT, your point is right. Mark's point is right that they may not do it that way, but
for sure.
Yeah. All right. Ryder Rogotsky, big mover here. This dude just keeps pinning people. He moved from 24 to 15. Might be a low-key good guy to pick in your fantasy pool if you don't want to spend a lot of points and want pin points. 97, even though Rocky got pinned, it doesn't change anything because Sloan was ranked ahead of him. And at heavyweight, we'll get here, but Doucette, so Doucette drops down behind Heinzelman. Doucette was 9th last week on average, but a couple services had him 8th. And so that affects the team rankings. We got to talk about these team rankings. Just bonkers. So Penn State's at 136 and change. And then you have between North Carolina State, I'll just say this quickly if people aren't reading. NC State 66 and change. Okie State 65 and change. Iowa 61. Nebraska 58. Iowa State 59. Michigan 55. Virginia Tech 54. Cornell 54. Lehigh 51. Mizzou 51. Okay, and they all have some fractions after them for the most part. But between 66 and 51 is 2 to 11. And this is how quickly this could change. Like if an NC State guy loses in a duel tonight, like if Kairini loses to Latona, which is not a crazy thing, and they pull him out of the top 8 and he was 5th, they're going to lose 8 points. And now they're right in the middle of this thing. And then Virginia Tech could move. I mean, like, this is literally one coin flip match for most of these teams. And so I can tell you this. I mean, me and GT were talking about it. He had Nebraska at the beginning of the year, and that's looking really smart. I had Missouri and Cornell at the beginning of the year. That's looking less smart. I think Mark had Michigan, and that looks okay. I think those guys are older, but, they're all in the middle of it. Like, if you're going to say, well, I still think Missouri and Lehigh's in here at 51, and nobody's talking about them, but a lot of it is because they have points from guys that are unproven. They have a lot of points from Stanich and from Crookham and then Beard and then heavyweight. Their points are all super concentrated in like 4 dudes, and 2 of those guys have never wrestled in a national tournament. Doesn't mean they can't do it. I mean, if I wanted to have a guy with Luke Stanich's skill set, I would want him to be at 125 this year. He can win that way. I mean, like if he's at 165, he's probably in the round of 12. I mean, it's just the depth is different at these weights. So, All right, let's pick Iowa, Oklahoma State. This duel will be at Gallagher. So let's start with this. First of all, I think there's a 100% chance that Gabe Arnold wrestles 184. For people that don't know, the reason why Gabe Arnold didn't wrestle against Penn State was an illness in the family. Not going to get any more specific than that, but I know that directly from Gabe's dad. It's not my – I was given permission to say that, but it was not that he was ducking Starachi or anything like that. I don't know if they would have wrestled him, but then he had 2 dates left, so they wrestled him against Wisconsin, and he beat Legal, and so now he's got 1 match left. All right. So I almost feel like we need to write these down, but we'll see how it goes. Okay. Ayala, Spratley. Mark?
I'm going to go with Ayala.
GT?
Take Spratley by decision.
I'll go Ayala. All right. So we already have 33. GT?
I'll take Fix by major decision.
I will too. Mark?
Same,
you said?
Yep.
Okay, 41. I'll take Woods by decision over Jameson. Mark?
Same.
GT?
Yep, I'll go with Woods.
Okay. 49. So Caleb Rachi kind of on an upward trajectory right now. Jordan Williams just lost to Willie McDougall. Mark?
I'm going to go with Ratchy, but Williams scares the living daylights out of me. I know how talented he is. It wouldn't shock me if he won this match, but Ratchy has wrestled really well. He's getting some confidence, so I'm going to stick with him.
All right. GT?
I'm going to take Jordan Williams by decision.
I will split the difference because I took Ayala at 25, so I'll take Williams at 49. Okay, so right now I've got it 2-2. Mark's got it 3-1. Iowa, GT's got it 3-1. Oklahoma State. So if you guys kind of keep track of where you have your own duels, your own picks, that'd be great for me. Okay, 57. Franek over Travis. Any dissension there?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
65. This is a great match. Olenek and Caliendo. If people did not see the Hamidi Caliendo match, Mark, you and I talked about it off the air. Very entertaining match. Hamidi ran out early. Caliendo came back late. I think the final score is like 14-11 or 14-12 or 13-11, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so who do you got?
I'm going to take Caliendo.
Of course you are.
Well,
GT. What?
I don't know why you said, of course you are. I mean, I just think
I think right now you're going to have Iowa win 9 out of 10 matches.
I don't know about that, David. Come on.
We'll see, David. All right, GT, who you got? Izzy?
Yeah, I got Izzy Olenek.
I do too. Okay, so I've got it 3-3 at this point. Mark's got it 5-1. GT, you have it 4-2, correct?
So far, yeah.
Okay. 74. PK against BT. Grant?
I'm taking Patrick Kennedy.
Okay, Mark?
So wait a minute. I have a 5-1 Iowa, and Grant has it 4-2 Oklahoma State.
So far.
Wow. I'm going to take Kennedy, but
Okay,
close, really close.
I'll take Kennedy too. Okay. So you're keeping track. I got it 4-3 Iowa at this point. Dustin Plott, Gabe Arnold. Okay. There's no reason to wrestle Riggins here. Okay. Plott might beat Gabe. He's not going to beat him up, I don't think. I'll take Plott by decision. Grant?
We got Plott by decision.
Oh.
Plott by decision.
Okay. All right. So this next match here is super critical to the duel because Luke Serber's not been healthy all year. And Zach Glazer I think we all agree is sort of chronically underrated, right? So Glazer has one loss. Well, he really has two losses. He lost the match to Ferrari, and then he lost to Brooks. Both guys that are national champs. He's got a very similar resume sort of to Mitchell Messenbrink, where he hadn't wrestled a ton of ranked guys yet. Okay. Mark, Glazer or Serber?
Glazer.
GT.
Taking Glazer by decision.
Okay. I'll take Glazer too. I just don't think Serber's healthy. I think a healthy Serber's at home wins that match, but he's not. Okay. And then Doucette over Hill. Mark, are you going to give Oklahoma State that match?
I am. That's their third I'm giving them. So you said I was going to go 9-1 or something, and no, I didn't. Yep.
You have it 7-3.
Yes, I did.
GT, you have it 6-4 Oklahoma State or 7-3 Oklahoma State?
For what do you mean? For the total duel?
Yeah.
I have it 5-5, brother.
You have 5-5?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got Ayala, Fix, Woods, Jordan, 2-2. Franek and Lennox are 3-3. PK and Plotter 4-4. Yeah, I have it 5-5.
I have it going down to criteria.
You giving that?
And who majors for Iowa? Because you have Fix.
I have Jared Franek getting a major decision.
Okay. All right. So you may come down to total match points.
Wow.
16-16 total match points.
That's what I have for my prediction.
Okay.
I should change one of mine. I hate 25. The highest ranked kid, for some reason, just can't get it done. No, I got to stick with Drake. I just think he's a little bit better.
It's a fascinating duel, right?
It is. It's going to be a really good duel.
So they are promoting the hell out of this. Hardell is going to do the call with Shane Sparks. So congratulations to Hardell. He was super excited when I talked to him earlier this week. GT, they're both Nike schools, so you win either way. Speaking of Nike schools, Mizzou has been using those two pieces a little, several times this year, huh?
Yeah, they like them. They were the first team to ever use them.
And we like them at Border Brawl. So
we're talking about Nike. I'd like to give a shout out to Caitlin Clark from the University of Iowa women's basketball. She is a Nike representative. She signed with Nike, and she just broke the NCAA record for most points by a female in the history of the NCAA. She is now trying to surpass the men's leader, which is Pete Maravich, who did it in 3 years, but with no 3-point line. But anyway, just a shout out to her. She's been phenomenal. She's fun to watch. She's changed the culture of women's basketball. And, we talk about how women's wrestling has really changed and improved, and all these people are doing great things for women's wrestling. She's doing the same thing in basketball. So kudos to her.
Yeah, no doubt. She's a game changer just in terms of people following the sport. So I'm trying to see what else we need to cover here. I think the last thing, which is completely self-serving, is I got a call from Pete Isaias, and I will be one of the announcers at the Olympic trials again. So I'm very excited about that. I think I told you guys about it in a text in our group chat, but so I'll be out at State College. GTNO, you'll be out there. And in that role, I think there's the Worlds, the Olympics, the NCAAs, and this, and I think those are sort of the four biggest things you can do. So to be able to do this twice in 3 years is something I'm excited about. I'm going to take it very seriously. We try to have fun on the air on this, but I'll be super prepared. So I just got to teach my mom and dad how to watch Peacock between now and the middle of April, get them on their smart TVs and load them up.
I think it's great. I think you deserve it. So, this is something you've worked toward, and, I think USA Wrestling made the right decision. So
I appreciate it, man. It's, talking about all this stuff, I do think has some credibility towards it. Like, and Mark, you and I will say this, adding Grant to the podcast has A, made it more fun, and B, especially, I don't want to call it the off season, the non-folk style season, we'll call it that, the March to October portion of the year. We get smarter talking to somebody like Grant, and that hopefully permeates into some of the play-by-play I'm doing, and being able to ping a guy like GT, like in the weeks leading up to the trials, and some of the referees I get to talk to about the rules. And I got the list of qualifiers from Gary, and one night I couldn't sleep, and I already putting together preliminary brackets. GT educated me on 57 kilos. We talked about that the other week. So it's really fun. And I'll tell you, like, my hero is my dad. And so when, my dad told me he was proud of me and thought it was really cool, that meant a lot to me. So I'm excited about it. So you guys can go to fantasygrade.com and pick some of these duels this weekend. They also are having a live contest at NCAAs where GT will be there. And if Mark decides to grace us with his presence, he'll be there. And there's just a lot of cool stuff going on this time of the year. I'll give a shout out to a team next week that I got to speak to, but they just clinched their first team state title. I think they're going to win by like 100 points. And then a bunch of the teams that wrestled in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dual Meet Classic are wrestling this weekend. So we'll say this one more time. Good luck to everybody chasing those yellow medals. And just good luck to everybody who's wrestling. Like, you don't have to win a gold medal for wrestling to have been extremely important to you in life and to have made you a better person. And some of the biggest donors back to our sport are people that never won a gold medal at a super high level, and they have changed the sport so much for the better. And a ton of people are doing this behind the scenes. I have one person who's a friend of mine who probably donates $100,000 a year to people, and nobody knows about them. It's a married couple, and they didn't wrestle; they just love wrestling. So, shout out to everybody chasing it. GT, maybe we'll get you on the air next week. It depends on your schedule, right? Because you guys go to Kansas next week for NAI Nationals.
Yeah, so it's an earlier time period. We'll be down there on Wednesday, basically the day before, being able to get all this stuff done. Competition is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we went back to a 3-day format. So really excited about kicking off the postseason with the NAIs. And then, once again, it's championship season for everybody. High schoolers, college people, regionals, conference, everything is going right now. So just excited to see that little run where we have everything all at once, and every week we're going to have national tournaments to talk about, conference tournaments to talk about. So exciting time in the sport of wrestling with the Olympic trials, where you're going to be shedding the light of St. Louis, Missouri on everybody at the Olympic trials.
The panda, it's like the bat signal, the panda signal.
Now, Grant, you guys wrestle next weekend. The following weekend is most of the conference tournaments.
Yes.
Do you go to one of those because of Nike, or because you do so many schools, do you just watch?
Yeah, so luckily, usually the NAIs are on the same weekend as all of the major Division I men's college conference championships. So usually I don't ever get a chance to, and I'm watching it on my phone or watching it at night in between, scouting and watching video and all that other stuff. But fortunately, my dad wanted to go to the Big 12s. They're honoring, I think, Chuck Patton at the Big 12 championship. So there's going to be a big Northern Iowa reunion down there. So he wanted to go. So I'm going to be able to drive down with my pops to the Big 12 championships in Tulsa for the first time for a long time since I've been able to go to a conference championship. Good. But usually with all of the different Nike schools, we usually just spread out. My boss, Shane Goodell, he's been going to the Big Tens forever. Basically since we started, the Big Tens have always been on his calendar. And once again, with me coaching at NAI, I have never been able to really attend much of the conference championships, but I'll be able to watch it on my phone, be able to watch everything that, getting results via X and or Twitter. So excited for that time of the year.
Well, we'll get GT connected with Joel Kester, who's the Tulsa sports commissioner, and he'll point him in the right direction of sports bars. They'll have the other conferences on in between the Big 12 sessions. But I've got a chance to commentate that tournament a couple times. It's a great experience down there in Tulsa. And GT, you mentioned all the championships, and we mentioned at the top, it's Pan Am season too, Olympic qualifier season. The next, it's the championships and then the qualifier the next 2 weeks. And then Gary Abbott and I were talking, there's a last chance qualifier where one athlete gets to it each weight. So it is time to just get after it. Like it's just, sort of get it done kind of time. So anyway, for Mark, for Grant, I'm David. We appreciate you guys watching and listening, and we will see you all next week.